everybody. I was just sharing with the smaller group. My name is Collie Turner. I've been in the marketing and advertising vertical for well over 20 years, primarily digital, primarily focusing in healthcare. And as Jen mentioned, I was fortunate enough to work with her and with Brooke Chase in Wilmington a few years ago, and we had a blast. And it's always a team effort, Jen. So I learned as much from you as you learned from me. So I'm excited to share with everybody a little bit about the organization that we founded in 2018. So thanks for the opportunity. Really excited to talk a little bit today about our journey. I think everybody that is participating today, you have your own story and you are somewhere with that story. For me, this is just to give you maybe some thought starters or approaches to how we've gone about evolving the organization. So our organization is called Heroic Gardens. Our mission is to connect underrepresented U.S. veterans and their families with plants and nature. A little bit about us, as I mentioned, we started in 2018. That's when we received our official 501c3 filing. I don't like to tell people that we're a nonprofit because to me, that's a tax code. We are a business. We are an organization, but we are very civic minded. We span our services across the Delaware Valley, and so what does that mean? We are in Philadelphia, we are in Wilmington, we are in North Delaware, we are in South Jersey, and we are in the immediate suburbs of Philadelphia. We are currently 100% volunteer base. We like to serve individual veterans as well as organizations that are helping veterans. So, it could be VFWs, it could be American Legions, it could be transitional housing from a veterans center in a city. It's really amazing to see volunteers and vets working side by side. There is this civilian, non-civilian connection that people are making while they are experiencing either the outdoors, or they have their hands in soil, or they are doing project work together. There's something fascinating that's happening. And so, when we thought about starting this, our goal was really, how can we create awareness around the environment and around plants and the importance of plants, and help people get more connected to plants. So everybody here, are you familiar with the people-plant connection? Got any gardeners? I know we do. There's some of you. Yeah, I see one. So let's keep going. Let me talk about that. So when you think about the people-plant connection, what does that mean? Well, look out your window, right? Or look on your windowsill. You may have a plant right next to you. It's in our food, right? It's in the clothes we wear. It's in the building materials that are now being used to make buildings. And scientifically speaking, there is clinical evidence that, we need plants as much as they need us. And when we think about that connection, we are looking to help our veterans do a number of things. Reduce stress, right? The level of PTSD that a soldier experiences when they come out, they will never be a civilian again. They stopped being a civilian the day that they went to boot camp. So if we're thinking about what plants help reduce, fatigue, symptoms of ADHD, depression, pain, and the increase of working with plants are bone strength, self-esteem. We've even seen wound healing, concentration, and relaxation. So there are a lot of amazing benefits if you're not already out gardening or buying plants. I suggest, think about that over the weekend. So I want to share with you, in 2019, this was our year one. Nobody had heard of us before. And these were our results for year one. We had 4,400 volunteer hours logged. We had 70 volunteers. Those are uniques. I had some repeat offenders show up at some of our events. We served 14 veterans. We raised over $4,000 primarily on Facebook. And we had about $2,100 in in-kind donations, and I'll talk a little bit about that. All of that's wonderful, but the impact was to our veterans, right? And I mean, even this quote from our veteran Gemma, I'm in tears. I can't tell you how much this means to me. Not too many people know that I'm a veteran. So when people remember, out comes the box of tissues. A lot of people are always interested in, you know, how did you have that much success in year one? And I think, you know, this really gave me pause to think about what we did differently as an organization to achieve that success. And while I was preparing these slides for everybody, I came across this really great saying: sow a thought, reap an action. Sow an action, reap a habit. Sow a habit, reap character. Sow character, reap destiny. I mean, that should be all of us. We should all be thinking about that when we are thinking about ourselves, our impact that we have to our communities, our own businesses, right? Our own families, personal, professional. I feel like those 2 years, I just focused on that immediate next step, right? Don't get me wrong, like anybody else, I had the internal monologue that was telling me to, you know, well, what if this, and I can't do this. And I definitely had a lot of obstacles and a lot of people not returning my phone calls, just blatantly ignoring me or telling me I couldn't do this. And so I think, you know, let's keep that in mind when we're talking today, because look at where we are all right now, right? We're at a virtual conference, which, you know, even 6 months ago, we would have been doing this together in person. Maybe we're feeling a little vulnerable. We're definitely feeling different. And are we checking in with one another to really understand and be authentic with each other as to how we feel? It's a gamut of emotions. I think we're all feeling that. And so I would ask for, you know, this conversation today to think about being present, you know, while you are here participating with me, and thinking to one of our great forefathers of environmentalism, Henry David Thoreau: you must live in the present, launch yourself on every wave, and find your eternity in each moment. I don't think it's very easy to do this, right? It sounds amazing, but it's not very easy. And so here's the story of Heroic Gardens, and this is our story. Everybody has one. Hopefully you'll find some components that you can leverage in your everyday. So everybody talks about this, like stretching yourself. I just want to share what my experience was. And these two pictures were exactly my go-tos. In 2017 through early 2018, I just had this idea, and I socialized it, right? I looked at the opportunity to figure out, what are the conferences I could go to? Who are the people I need to meet? How am I putting myself out there? It's okay to say to yourself, wow, what is coming out of my mouth? It doesn't make any sense. Do I sound stupid? No, because the authentic you comes out when you make these connections. And I spent a lot of time at the end of 2017 meeting with owners of nonprofit organizations and saying, how did you do this? What are the shortcuts? You know, what should I really be paying attention to? They all gave me time, and they were all very gracious. These pictures here represent, the one on the left is me actually standing up at a conference that I just went to by myself and asking a room full of 500 nonprofit leaders in the Philadelphia area for help. And I want to tell you, it was one of the hardest things I had done in my adult life, because I think as we get older, we think about, it's not that we know everything, but you know, we think we know how to get to the next step. I want to tell you, when I asked for help, there were maybe 15 people that came up to me afterwards Only one of them panned out, but that's okay because I needed to meet each and every one of those folks for sure. And if anybody today is in the nonprofit world, you know this woman on the right? Joan Gary, she's like the expert in nonprofit leadership. She wrote the book, Nonprofits Are Messy. I was invited to attend one of her workshops for free. Seriously? Like, these are the moments when you're like, okay, it's not, I gotta walk the dog or I gotta go work out. I gotta show up. And the exercise she had this room do was the elevator pitch. I'm a potential donor. Tell me about your organization. I had no idea. I had no idea. And I walked out of there saying, what am I doing? Maybe this is a mistake. But I kept going. So, we got a lot of words in the English language. Risk is one of them, and can't is one of them, and it's 4 little tiny letters, right? So remember I told you I couldn't get anyone to call us back. I was trying to, in my glass half full way, say, well, I'm just going to put this out there to VFWs and veterans are going to come. And that's not how it works, because if you ask anyone in the military, they're never going to ask for help. It has to be offered to them, and you have to know how, and you have to know who to talk to. So I did a little research, and I came up with this organization in West Philadelphia called Haven Women, which, if anybody out there is familiar with the Veterans Administration in Philadelphia, there's an organization called the Philadelphia Veterans Comfort House. It's part of the Multi-Service Center. They had recently transformed this building in West Philadelphia to a shelter for female veterans that were in transition. So the inside had been gutted. It was gorgeous. The outside was not. And I picked up the phone. I called the executive director, and that is the woman you see down there, and that's me in the little pom-pom hat in snow, saying, hey, let me come, and we are going to fix your flower beds. Seems like a simple thing, right? At that moment, I made a promise. I made a promise without really understanding what was under those flower beds and what impact this would have. But I knew we needed something to have a proof point. So this commitment was our risk. It was our first risk. So look what happened. Like I mentioned, we had over 70 volunteers. This project, 3 12x9, which is not a very big space, flower beds, took us 6 months. And it took us 6 months because one of the flower beds was all bamboo that had not been touched in 20 years. There were all kinds of drug paraphernalia. There was all kinds of trash, things that needed to be, completely cleaned out before we could start planning and start planting. And all of these folks were steadfast in the amount of times they showed up, how they got to work. And it was this incredible combination, as I mentioned, of civilians and veterans. We even had a crew from Philadelphia Gas Works show up, and those are those folks in the blue vests. It really became this community effort that the VA noticed, that the state noticed, and it helped to put us on the map. So we believed, and look, I said it took, X amount of months, right? 6 months. There were a lot of problems. I mean, the bamboo was number one. If you have ever worked with it, it's just, it shouldn't be, it's illegal in Philadelphia now. I had to learn to drive a backhoe. I had to fundraise to get the backhoe. I mean, every day it was something else. And it really helped me center myself to say, you know what, we have this one scenario, let's fix that, and it will lead to the next component of this project. I stayed optimistic. I asked for help, and we made good on our promise. And we even had some of our veterans get involved. And this is Patricia, who I want to tell you, she was at this home having suffered a stroke. She has an MBA from Villanova in finance. And this woman is living at this home because after the stroke, she found herself homeless. We watched her get back to a rehabilitated state, and she started coming out and tending to the garden. So it became, they were curious about what we were doing, to, can you plant an herb garden so we can cook? Can you label things for us so we understand how to care for them? And Patricia says, this is my little piece of heaven back here. And when I need solace, I come back here and I water the flowers. For those 15 minutes, everything is quiet and peaceful. To watch everything be reborn again is truly a blessing. To me, it's healing. To sit here and watch Mother Nature at work, it's healing me on the inside and my process of getting back to life. I get teased all the time that I carry like major boxes of tissues with me, but I get so connected to these veterans, and still, like, we email, we are connected, we are an organization they know they can rely on. Okay, so another one that you probably all know, but I'm just going to reiterate it is, right, our new mantra is, yes, I'll be there. There's been a lot of this, like, you know, what's the name of the woman who, Marie Kondo, right? Just get rid of it, don't do it, say no, it's okay to say no. I'm gonna just flip that on its ear a little bit, because in year one, it was really important to figure out where we could be, right? And it really helps the evolution. So I'm looking at a combination of things I wasn't necessarily qualified to do, or places I wasn't qualified to be at, but I showed up. So the one on the left is actually was sponsored by Technically, and they were looking to, it was a job fair. I was looking for volunteers. So most people were not necessarily, they signed up, but they weren't interested because they were looking to be hired. What did it do? It helped me with my story, right? It helped me get the brand out there in Philadelphia. The picture below is the boardroom at the Cohen Veterans Center at University of Pennsylvania. So imagine me going in with my first slide presentation ever, no clinical background, and talking to a group of clinicians about the importance of plants and what we do. And as an added bonus, I brought in a whole bunch of plants and lined them up on the boardroom table just to do my own little science experiment, to see who would touch them, who would stay away from them, who would talk about them. Again, they were a great audience. They were very in tune. They were very forgiving. And they wanted to help. They're connected to the veterans. They're seeing the unmet need. Great experience. The next one is me in, I want to say in like the Kensington area of Philadelphia at the Veterans Boxing Center. So there's little old me setting up shop with my banner. And most people there were there for veterans benefits. So I, again, got to tell my story. I picked up a few volunteers, but most of the veterans there said, I don't garden. I don't need that. But it was good to hear, because that's objection handling, right? I live in housing that doesn't have a backyard. Okay, well, there's still an answer for you. It's still really critical for your healing that we find a way to get you connected. And finally, that last box is, you know, everybody's doing podcasting. I have been invited to speak 3 times, and it cracks me up because my story is finally starting to get better about the organization. If you listen to me on this particular podcast, I have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm okay to say that, because it's important. You have to socialize these things in order to refine them and have it become a reality. So the next one was, you know, I'm talking a lot about plants and nature and the clinical elements of plants and healing. Gosh, I better walk the walk and talk the talk. So I went back to get my certification in horticultural therapy. I went to Temple University. I haven't been a student in a very long time. And you know what? It might have been one of the most important components to my own knowledge of horticulture. to my own knowledge of how we use plants to heal, to understand what to look for when I go into a location in terms of ADA compliance, to know what I want to build for our veterans. What's really amazing is the horticultural therapy universe is pretty vast. I had no idea that I would meet so many amazing people that would help me on this journey that I needed. And frankly, that needed me. So it was a very symbiotic commitment I made to myself and to the organization. Everybody's got to be smarter, right? I mean, we're all trying to learn as much as we can, consume as much as we can. I think it's even harder now because we don't necessarily have that tactile connection, but surrounding yourself with people that are seasoned and smarter. And this goes back to socializing your idea. One of our friends from Gaudenzia introduced me to an ad agency. She said, you should apply Heroic Gardens for this. If they pick you, they take you on for a year. Well, they didn't pick me, but they did offer me a free meeting. Now, remember, I've been in marketing and advertising for a very long time, but I went. I don't know these guys. I wanted to hear what they had to say. And they ripped my website to shreds in a very nice way. And that was great. That wasn't why I was supposed to meet them. Their client were these two guys right here. They own a company called Enliven Planters. Their CEO, who is the gentleman in the forefront, Paul, is on our board. They are a subscription plant company in Philadelphia and the main line in the suburbs. They only do high-end planters. And guess what happens every quarter when they have to take all the plants out of those planters? They throw them away. So now they don't. And, you know, this falls into our 5-year vision of having a facility where we can actually intake these things, potentially resell them completely. I don't want to get sidetracked, but I got ideas. So he's on our board, right? So he's an expert. He's a landscape architect, for crying out loud. When I need a design really authentically built out, Paul's my guy. Plus he gives us our plants. I mentioned the Cohen Veterans Network. One of their intake social workers is on our board. He is also the founder of a school called Blue Star Academy, which I will talk about in a moment when we talk about COVID. Action News, this goes back to socializing. So my husband works for Action News. He's worked there for 36 years. This has nothing to do with him. This is me going to a company event and sitting next to a woman who happens to be a big gardener and just saying, this is what I'm thinking of doing. Now she is the chairman of our board, and she is a very knowledgeable and very connected planter in the Delaware Valley, and she also happens to be the health producer at Channel 6. So again, when we're talking about the health benefits and the outlet to share this kind of information, she's an incredible person to have as an expert. And the person at the bottom is also on our advisory board. She is an arborist, she is a landscape architect, and she is a horticultural therapist. Her name is Peg Schofield, and she was also my professor. So small wins, big wins, however you want to look at them, you know, who's your committee? Like, who's your professional committee? Who's your personal committee? They're allowed to go together because this is about helping you fulfill the mission that you're setting out to achieve, and be with people that just, it feels right. It just fits. This is one of my favorite ones because, you know, it's that reality of you got to refine, rewrite, and then do it all over again. So I wanted to share with you all sort of the transition and transformation our logo and our mission went through over the last 3 years. So we always had this design, but look at 2018, to contribute to the sustainability, beautification, and extension of place veterans call home. I don't even know what that means, right? And that was written from the lens of, I haven't done the work yet. I haven't had the interactions. So in 2019, we were like, okay, what is it we're doing? Well, we're providing veterans access to free gardening services at home or within their communities. Yeah, we're getting better. But in 2020, it became real that we were what are we doing and how are we connected to freedom? We adopted the tagline, "Let freedom bloom," which has really stuck. And as we started working with veterans, we realized that the veterans we were working with they're homeless. They may be, just coming off the street after significant drug use. They are, women now. The statistic, I believe, is 1 in 4 women in the military experience sexual trauma. Most of these folks that we've been helping are female. So we don't want to discount the men, or any other group that are veterans. But what we do recognize is that the VA sees everybody as a soldier. And we've got populations in the veteran community that, while they are soldiers, they're not men. So our new mission is to connect underrepresented U.S. veterans and their families with plants and nature. And it's not just cleaning up their backyard, right? It's offering horticultural therapy. It's working in these community centers. It's ripping out courtyards and putting in something that's ADA compliant that everybody can enjoy. It's getting to the heart of these veterans and asking them, if you had this, what would you do? And it's okay if they don't ask. And what do you do now? Besides sit out here and smoke. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. Am I okay, Jen? I know you're muted, but I can speed it up if you want.
No, you are fine. We have
good. Okay.
2:45.
Oh, sweet. Okay. So laugh all you want at this. I mean, not everybody, I think, is probably on the squiggly line, right? Life and work are not linear. My life is definitely complete, like professionally, is just a circus. I'm very proud of that because I think I'm just a curious person. But COVID sort of, adds a little funky element into that too, right? I feel like when we are in some of these up and down lines, it tends to, we think it's setting us back, and it's not. Before I went back to school, I sat in on a couple classes at Del Val College, and I was told, like, if you don't do this, you won't succeed. And I walked away from there thinking, what am I doing? And maybe I should quit. And it was clearly, I've never forgotten that moment. But I think the important part to remember is, if you have a setback, just take a shift to the right or the left, because there's something else that you're missing, that you're not paying attention to. So don't let it be daunting, right? Because we can, especially right now when we're by ourselves or with one other person, or however we're social distancing, it's hard to get out of your head. And what now? Everybody's favorite graphic. Look, we had so much momentum in 2019. I want to share a little bit about what we were doing before we stopped work on March 14th. I think it's really important, because then I want to share what we're doing now. So in 2020, we were taking on some really big projects. I had no idea how I was going to fund them, but I had a contractor. As you know, we have a plant supplier. We also have now a tree and shrub supplier. And we were getting ready to gut a property in Roslyn, Pennsylvania. We had, because of our work at Haven, we had been asked by Impact Services, which is down on First in Indiana, and it is a male intake center for homeless veterans, to rebuild Pebble Beach. And this was going to be like the thing, the newsworthy thing, a huge courtyard in the Badlands of Philadelphia that we were going to rip apart and turn into an oasis. We were going to build an indoor pizza garden at the Veterans Multi-Service Center. We were going to teach them how to plant, how to be accountable for the growth, how to harvest, and then how to feed all of their fellow soldiers. And this property we started working on in Newcastle, Delaware last June, we were going to finish up. We were going to install 2 new trees. We also were able to start saying, hey, we need stuff. Like, we're here, we need stuff, right? I think in year one, it was sort of, we were hesitant to ask because we didn't have any proof points. We didn't have a basis. But now when we have been invited to talk, we go out and we say, listen, we need funds, goods, or services, right? However that, we've told you a little bit about us. Let's see if there's a match. Do you have a veterans group that you need help with? Do you need horticultural therapy? Can anybody give me a lawyer for free or an accountant for free? And does your company want to volunteer with us as a corporate opportunity? I want to tell you, we have a lawyer and a CPA now, just FYI. But then COVID hit, and all of those plans for 2020, they went away. They were paused. So what do we do? Well, like you all, we use email and social media to stay connected, not only to our volunteers, but our veteran community. But you know what? It's sort of what I mentioned earlier. We're using this time to say, maybe it's not about working in the male centers, but maybe it's focusing on underrepresented populations that aren't necessarily going to the VA, but need the help and support. So these projects coming out of COVID, when and if we come out, may not even make sense for our organization anymore. We started identifying new partnerships and ways we can expand. And that's actually the picture you see up top is one of our volunteers. She is doing a demonstration on how to plant a seed in a Dixie cup and grow a plant. And the reason she's doing that, and we have a YouTube channel that has started, by the way, is because our new partnership is with an organization I mentioned earlier called Blue Star Academy. So they are an online school for military connected children, K through 12. And they have several partners that are helping with online, outside of online classes, but activities. And Heroic Gardens is one of them. So a lot of our volunteers now, I'm spending my weekends where I would have been, working on a site. I'm actually going from a social distance perspective to some of our volunteers' homes and filming them doing a demo. So it's great because the volunteers still feel connected, and we're still talking expertise, but we're showing everybody how to do these things at home. As I mentioned, we're tightening our lens too around our mission. Guess what? We are writing a business plan. Now, I think that's funny, right? Because if we've been around for a couple of years, maybe some of you are thinking, well, why didn't you have one before? It goes back to that life is not linear slide. I could not write it. I was stuck. It was daunting. I couldn't. And I literally a week ago sat down and just started writing because I had been living through it. And now I understood what I needed. And with a business plan comes grant opportunities. We've been talking with a lot of foundations now that have interest in providing us a space where we can build a garden and a center for women to come and experience healing, and perhaps even introduce workforce development and get these women back to work if they have an interest in horticulture. We hired an advertising agency. And when I say hired, we're their pro bono client. But hey, boy, that feels good, right? Especially when it comes to market research, listen to me, I made up a new word, strategic planning, like a 5-year vision, because we want to expand. We are hoping this video series will give us some national recognition. So we'll be able to start operationalizing what we do in major areas that have lots of soldiers, like San Antonio, Texas, South Jersey, Delaware, not just the Delaware Valley. So, and we're finishing our projects this weekend. We're actually planting trees in Delaware. We're making it out to our veterans home, just a few of us, and we will, we'll publicize that after. Because we don't want anyone to just show up, obviously. But and her patio furniture will arrive just in time for Memorial Day weekend, so we will finish up that project. And as I said, we're using this time because we've got our ducks in a row. to apply for grants. And that's always, you know, one of, again, a daunting thing that people say, well, how much grant money do you have? Have you applied for any grants? It's like, it's not just like, you know, have you ate a banana today? I mean, there's a lot of work that has to go into grant writing. And when you are volunteer based and you have, you know, very little people doing everything, I don't want to say grants are the last thing for us, but now that we have a story, we have a much better shot. So that's our story today. I mean, I hope you'll check in with us in a year to see what happens. I'd love for you to follow us on Instagram, visit us, get involved, especially if we're working in your neighborhoods. You know, I'm sure Brooke and Jen can attest to the fact that they knew when this was really just beginning, and it was more of a dream and a concept. So we're really proud of where we've gotten to, and hopefully this gave you all some good thoughts to help with your organizations. Thank you.